Hello and welcome in to another edition of New Track Record. Caleb Hatch with you, Justin Kinney. Hello, Justin.
Hello, Caleb.
We're back in a new studio after just a busy few weeks, and we have a new recording space. Shout out to the Allen County Public Library, main branch. Support your local public library. And we're ready to go. So let's dive in. After a week off,
What's going on? Do we have anything going on?
Yeah, I mean, we have the month of May. We have
when it's not raining, at least.
Yeah, true. We have that. We have, of course, the Sonsio Grand Prix. Alex Palou winning that over the weekend. Great first half of the race. Second half, just kind of a follow the leader kind of event.
Well, I mean, especially the start and the restart that we got was very exciting. And it just, once things kind of fanned out a little bit, there really wasn't much excitement, drama. You had differing strategies, which I think added something. But we're used to those kind of races, I guess, at the road course. Most instances, they aren't the most exciting races. There's plenty of passing opportunities, but it just, I mean, the ones that we remember, the ones in the wet, right? Or the semi-wet is kind of what we're getting to. And it was a decent race, not amazing. And Alex Palou, I guess if you buy into the sort of thing, has the momentum going into the rest of the month.
Now we've seen Will Power in 2018, Simon Pagenaud, and in 2019, the only two drivers to sweep the Indy GP across, of course, its various sponsor titles over the years and the Indy 500. So we'll see if that's momentum, right? Because didn't Palou also win this race last year?
He did, and then that didn't materialize into a win. But we'll see if it can this year. I will say, if I'm looking to pick a winner for the 500 right now, and we're recording this Thursday morning when we're finally, hopefully not going on, we're getting a full day of practice down at the Speedway today, I'm going with either Palou or Dixon right now. But we'll see if Palou can keep up that momentum from the Sonsio Grand Prix and at least qualify well this weekend and make a run at the win a week from Sunday.
Far too early to make any snap judgments on what we've seen out of essentially they had 24 minutes the first day. They had a few hours of track time. They're currently on track now as we record again Thursday morning, May 16th. And who knows what will happen, with everything, looking at the time charts. As it sits right now, Joseph Newgarden, best lap, a 2:26 point, looks like 6, it looks like. So still really early on in the day. And again, not a whole lot to take into the speeds we've seen. Friday weather looks iffy. The weekend looks hot. So it's going to present some new scenarios. But while we're at it, let's just do our three takeaways from the Sonsio GP. And I guess my first one is, as great as Alex Palou was, if you're Christian Lundgaard and Team Rahal, you have to be very disappointed, because as good as he and that team as a whole has been at this track, whether it's been the May race or the August race, which they're no longer running currently this year, they have been very quick. It's amazing that Lundgaard, who in his first IndyCar start, remember, got that Fast 6 appearance, but it's amazing he hasn't won. And for him, a podium felt like a disappointment, which for a team like that, on one hand, it's like, well, that's a good day. But for Rahal and the speed that they've shown, Lundgaard, that's perhaps his best track in IndyCar. A podium is a disappointment. And I guess for them, as they switch to the oval, you have no idea what to expect. So it's got to be disappointing that that's all they were able to muster, especially with Lundgaard leading a lot of laps and looking like he had a car potentially to beat, getting the lead early from Palou.
Led 35 laps in the race, and this is a special place for Lundgaard. You mentioned his best track. Of course, he came in as a sub and had the brilliant performance, the brilliant qualifying that really kind of put himself on the map. And it was all about pit stops for this race in the Sonsio Grand Prix and who could beat who out in the pit stops. Christian Lundgaard and his team did a really good job the first round of pit stops to keep him out, but Alex Palou was able to jump Lundgaard in the second round of pit stops, and that really set the tone for the rest of the race. Palou drove away, But if you look at Lundgaard, he said, it's a good day when you're disappointed with third, but at the same time, this is a team that has very limited opportunities through the season to get wins. I mean, that's just the way things are. And at a track that they're very good, in particular, Christian Lundgaard, for it to get away the way he did, despite having such a good car and leading 35 laps over the course of the race, it did feel like a missed opportunity for sure.
And, I mean, he's a guy who won 2 races last year. So yes. It's not like they can't win races. Graham Rahal probably should have won a race or 2 last season. Obviously had a great run, just beat out by Scott Dixon barely at the GP edition in Indy in August. So this, on one hand, it's good momentum, but is there really any carryover? It remains to be seen. I'm not sure I buy that line of thinking.
No, me neither. I think it's a tired kind of approach that, if you do well in the Grand Prix, it carries into qualifying in the 500. These are professionals. I think if you have a bad day at the Grand Prix, it doesn't set the tone for the rest of the month. And conversely, if you have a good day at the Grand Prix, I don't think it necessarily sets yourself up for the rest of the month as being good. So I have a hard time buying into that. Even when Rahal struggled to even qualify for the 500. If I remember, they had a good road course pace. So you can't come and tell me that, the momentum helps in that respect, because Rahal was struggling with speed at the 500 when they were good at the Speedway in recent years, or on the road course. So I don't know how much is carryover, but at the very least, I think Lundgaard, and I think we felt this way even before the third place performance, he's the top driver at Rahal. I firmly believe that. I know Graham Rahal is the face, and for good reason. He's going to ascend to a leadership position after he's done. He already has. But Lundgaard has the most pure talent on that team. And getting a couple wins last year was huge. Would have been a huge to win at the road course. Had an opportunity, couldn't follow through. And I thought he did everything he needed to do. It was just Alex Palou and Will Power were better. And Will Power is a dominating force at the Indy GP on the Indy road course. And even he was eclipsed by Alex Palou last Saturday.
What's your first takeaway?
Well, let's talk about Alex Palou.
Yeah.
Because we put up a poll on Twitter, or X, whatever we're calling it these days, about who is the best all-around race car driver in IndyCar right now. And overwhelmingly, the vote went to Alex Palou. Now, I think some of that has to do with the fact that he had won the most recent race when we put that up. But it's an interesting discussion. He's won a couple championships. He's won a fair amount of races. Never won on an oval, however.
And that's the key.
And that's the thing. So when we're talking best all-around drivers, I have a hard time putting Alex Palou atop that list when he hasn't won an oval. All due respect to Alex Palou, he's a phenomenal driver. He's a championship driver. But I cannot put him over Scott Dixon or Joseph Newgarden at this point because of the fact that he has yet to win on an oval. And I don't know if that's your thought process as well.
I mean, on one hand, yes, but on the other, it's not like he's like uncompetitive and learning and growing on ovals like Will Power was at the start of his career, or even Scott McLaughlin. And those aren't really concerns, obviously not for Will Power and even for Scott McLaughlin. And he hasn't won on an oval yet, right? So I don't think those are holding them back. Part of it is they don't race on enough ovals to make it easy. And when there's about 2 drivers who you feel like could win pretty much any oval race, and Newgarden and Dixon, that just kind of limits your opportunities. With Palou, the thing that's crazy to me, so he's got 22 straight top 10 finishes,
which is just craziness.
He's finished 8th or better every race since Portland in 2022. 7 wins in that time span. Again, he's the points leader, which whatever, doesn't matter. We'll talk about that after the Indy 500. It was a great day, not just for Palou, but Ganassi as a whole. I mean, Marcus Armstrong, a career best finish. Scott Dixon, top 5 as well. So this was a great performance from everyone on the team. And I think Alex Palou, you talk about, Christian Lundgaard being the leader of that team. I get that Scott Dixon has all the accolades and everything, but Alex Palou is the new face of Chip Ganassi Racing. Without
a doubt. For sure. And just another Another great drive for him. My pushback is when we talk about all-around drivers, which is how we worded it, is you have a tough time convincing me he's the best all-around driver in the IndyCar series because of that lack of win on an oval. It's inevitable that it's going to come. It could come as soon as this month. Who knows? In a couple of weeks. But just a great performance by him, and just a really, really great opportunity for Palou getting that dub, and now heading into the next couple of weeks as, I think, on the short list of a guy that can win the 500.
If you were to pick, I don't know how many drivers you want to put on the shortest of short lists, like what, 6?
Yeah,
he leads that list.
Yeah, I mean, you can make a list of 18 to 20 that, quote unquote, could win this race, but then you narrow it down to, okay, like
Dixon, Palou, Newgarden, Power, Ericsson.
I mean, would you narrow it down to teams? Would you say Penske, Ganassi, Andretti, McLaren?
Yeah, I would throw in Pato on that list. Oof, do I add in Rossi? I don't know.
I mean, everybody will say, well, he's won here before, but it's like, yeah, but he didn't win on pace, special circumstances. I'm not taking the win away from him. I'm not saying that, but we haven't seen Alexander Rossi be able to win a 500 on pure pace, would be my thing. But yeah, I mean, if you were looking for a dark horse to win this race outside of the big 4 teams, who would you go? I think, quite frankly, I'd go Lundgaard, actually.
The Indy 500? Really?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm picking a team, I'm looking at Rahal, potentially.
I'm looking at Ferrucci. I'm looking at Honore. I'm looking at, let's see, outside the top 4 teams. I'm not throwing in Carpenter.
I just don't think Ferrucci. I know he was
Elio,
there last year.
Felix Rosenquist.
Yeah, Elio's. I think
Graham,
you throw in Meyer Shank.
Takuma
sure,
Sato. I mean, the Rahal team as a whole, I'm not sold that Lundgaard or Fittipaldi could win it, but I'm sold obviously on the other two, in Rahal and Sato.
One team I'm not sold on is Carpenter.
Yeah, I'm not either, because it doesn't matter how fast the pace is. They have to be mistake-free.
Yeah, and they just can't.
And they've shown an inability to do that.
For sure. So, but I think when you look at it, it's a great story that, 20 drivers could win this race. I think it's probably closer to 10 that could win this race.
Yeah.
And Alex Palou definitely in the thick of it. But
not even every driver on the top 4 or 5 teams. I mean,
right, I agree.
I'm not putting Callum Ilott on that list.
I'm not putting Kiffin Simpson on that list.
No.
For
or Marcus Armstrong, for that matter, as a rookie.
I have a hard time.
Linus Lundqvist is a rookie there.
I have a hard time putting Kyle Larson there.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he can have a great run. I think he could maybe finish in the top 5. Do I think Kyle Larson can win this race and nail every pit stop? And I'm not talking about his crew, but him coming in, not getting hit with any penalties or anything like that, just running a clean 250 laps or 200 laps. I have a hard time buying into that. But anyway, getting back to Alex Palou, he's definitely in the thick of who we think could really win the 500. But what's your number 2?
My number 2, and I think you're going to disagree with me on this.
Okay.
In fact, I'm pretty positive you will. But what Colton Herta did last Saturday, to me, was very, very impressive considering the circumstances. His team ran him out of fuel in qualifying. Not his fault, right? It was a bad error. So
very
he
bad.
started back in 24th instead of, probably would have been at worst 12th, right? I think we can agree with that. So that was a big mistake by the team. Then Marcus Ericsson takes him out early on. Ericsson got a 5-place penalty, had to yield 5 positions in the race. It was not a good day for him. Started 21st, finished 16th. But for Herta to drive from after that and that contact, he had a nice duel with Rossi, was able to get him late in the race and finish 7th. I know you disagree, but these are the kind of results Colton Herta needs if he wants to be a championship contender.
Yeah, he needs drives like this, but he also needs more wins. And I think that's what it's going to come down to, is you got to win more. And that's maybe not an indictment on Colton Herta as much as the team. more than anything. The team needs to deliver more. Like, case in point, running out of gas in qualifying. I mean, from what we saw on pace during practice, Colton Herta looked like a fast 6 car. And to throw it all away because of an error on pit lane, those are the things that I think is holding Colton Herta back just as much as himself. I think 10th place finishes in the points the last 2 years, I put more on the team than more on Colton Herta. He has to win more than once over the last 2 years, for sure. But I feel like his team lets him down more than anything. And once again, it was on Friday, the biggest of mistakes in qualifying is simply running out of gas. He's got a good start to the season in terms of, I think Colton Herta is as good as anybody in maximizing what the car is giving you or maximizing your ability on track. There's very few DNFs for Colton Herta that are caused by Colton Herta. And he does a good job at getting what the car gives him and getting out of it. I think the problem is that top end, is getting over the top. Is that Colton Herta? Is that the team? Is it a combination? I tend to lean toward combination. I think if you pluck Colton Herta from Andretti and put him on Penske and Ganassi, he's a championship contender. I firmly believe that. I agree with you that it was a great drive for him. Here's my caveat. Those are the drives that win you championships or put you into championship contention if you're driving for Penske Ganassi, but he's not. And that's what I think is holding him back.
And with Palou already asserting himself early this season, it's looking like we're going that direction yet again. And Newgarden, dare I say, all but out of it based on having the St. Pete result stripped away. So, and he's mired way back in points and was mired way back in this race. He didn't have anything. Started up front.
Where did he finish? Like 15th?
17th?
17th, yeah. At one point, I think with 15 or so laps to go, I was like, you know what? Where's Newgarden? He was in 15th at the time.
Yeah, he fell back early in the race and then had some contact late, I think, on that restart. So not a good day for him. But for Colton Herta, despite the challenges, it was a good day. And I think those are the kind of drives you want to see from him moving forward. How does he kind of fight back in those situations? Not when everything's going right, but when things are going wrong, how does he fight back? And he did a good job of that on Saturday.
And I think it showed what Colton Herta is. The weekend showed what Colton Herta is capable of doing, and then also the limitations of being with Andretti. We saw what he's capable of doing on Saturday driving through the field. We also know the limitations of Andretti with massive screw-ups like what we saw on Friday, running out of fuel. So it was two sides of the same coin with Colton Herta and Andretti. Is yes, he drives like a championship contending driver. He just doesn't drive for the right team to be a championship driver.
What's your, number 2?
Well, let's talk about, when you look at this, about really the Santino Ferrucci and Romain Grosjean back and forth. I'm
here entertaining
for it,
watching live.
I'm here for it. Yeah,
it did not help Ferrucci because he had a mechanical that may or may not have been related to that contact in the first couple laps of the race.
But here's my thing, because, and I saw some of this in Marshall Pruitt's mailbag about people kind of like pushing back on this, that, or the other. We need driver rivalries in this series. We need guys that don't like each other in this series, that are open about it. We've heard stuff about Joseph Newgarden, but that's not out in the open. There's not open vitriol for Joseph Newgarden. There may be plenty behind the scenes among drivers, but nothing that's prevalent. We have that with Santino Ferrucci and Romain Grosjean, and I feel like this series needs more of that. And as long as they're not dullards on the race course, especially in dangerous situations, they don't need to be messing around with each other at the 500, for example. But on road courses and stuff, they want to beat and bang. If they want to, go this, that, and the other, I'm perfectly fine with it. So it didn't end up helping Santino Ferrucci in the long run. Finish last, as you mentioned, with that mechanical. Grosjean comes home 12th. Another, I think, solid performance if you're Junko's Hollinger, but those kind of back and forth things, and it delivered in the pre-race with Santino Ferrucci dropping the FTG, which you can figure that out. I figured it out pretty quick. But those are the things I'm here for in IndyCar, and what I wish the series had more of. And I hope to see more of it as we go forward, particularly on road and street. I don't really want to see guys, putting a wheel wrong or getting into the side pods at ovals. But yeah, road and streets, let's have at it.
And we saw that at Barber too. I mean, it was all over the place at Barber, and that's what made Barber entertaining. I'd say the first half of this race was entertaining because of things like that, and that was just the first handful of laps of this race. So that was a nice sight to see, and to have maybe a little bit of a feud entering the Indy 500 again. Don't use your car as a weapon, especially on an oval, but it's okay to have what we saw on Saturday. I'm totally cool with seeing that once again. Especially
with two of the guys that are very similar in personalities in terms of they don't care who they piss off, and whether they're right or wrong, they're going to stick with it. And naturally, when they find each other on track, those personalities come out.
All right, time for my number 3, and I'm going to have to give a shout-out to Felix Rosenqvist.
Yes.
Another solid qualifying effort, started 10th and finished 10th, so looks like a ho-hum day. It was anything but. He dropped back, I think, to last because of that first turn melee where, 5-6 cars went off course. For him to battle back like he did on a track that, again, you had one caution the whole race for 2 laps. So that's an impressive drive, and we're seeing consistency from Felix, right? They entrusted Felix to be the team leader. There was a kind of a good scene on a boat with Meyer Shank Racing on 100 Days of Indy, episode 3, with Mike Shank basically saying, hey, we brought Felix in to be our leader, and we entrusted him to do that, and we expect him to deliver. And he's delivered this year. He's done a great job. And you feel like that breakthrough result is coming, excluding thermal.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, whatever.
Yeah,
with that.
Extenuating circumstance.
Yeah.
Throw that out.
But in a points race this season, I feel like it's coming. And does that mean a race win? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I feel like he has the ability to do it. He's a very talented driver. But definitely podiums are on the table for him. And, a top 10 points finish, if not higher. I mean, again, we're not looking at points right now because there's a lot to be determined, but he's doing a
good start.
He's doing a really good job, and I was really impressed by his drive through the field on Saturday.
He just seems much more relaxed with Meyer Shank, which is a much more relaxed atmosphere than McLaren. And neither approach is right or wrong, but it just feels like Rosenqvist just fits better at Meyer Shank in terms of maybe not the ultra pressure of, especially at McLaren, where every successive season in which they underperform, and last year was definitely that with not a single team victory, is more and more pressure on the Papaya Orange in IndyCar. And there's a lot of pressure when you're in McLaren cars in any racing series, especially one in which they feel they should be better than what they are. And you trade that for going to a team that is coming off arguably its worst stretch in its short IndyCar history of late, last couple years, and is just looking for some stability and somebody to bring some positivity and leadership, especially when your other full-time driver is a rookie in Tom Blomqvist, and just a guy that you feel can come in and is a veteran in the series and can bring experience and talent and communication. And Felix Rosenqvist has checked all those boxes for Meyer Shank. And I think Meyer Shank is better for it, and Felix Rosenqvist is definitely better for it. Has finished in the top 10 in all 5 of the races. Take thermal out, and he's still got finishes of 4th, 5th, 9th, and 10th. I think Meyer Shank has to be over the moon for what they've gotten out of Felix Rosenqvist thus far this year, especially with where this team was in the last couple seasons.
And how much does it help, and I'm sure it's a lot, kind of an obvious question, but how much does it help that you're driving for a team where you are the leader? There's not that pressure. Like, yes, there's the pressure to perform, but there's not the pressure that you could lose your job like there was at McLaren the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, and that's what we've heard. That's what has been said within the team about, like, he's not driving for his job this year. Next year, maybe expectations are raised a little bit, but this is a guy that's is a team, first off, that's really trying to remake itself and become a contender. Even with the 500 win with Elio, it hasn't been a consistent contender in the series. And that's where they're trying to reach. And definitely getting the win with Elio was a tremendous shot in the arm, but we're looking for consistency in the series, and that's what you're looking for, Michael Shank's looking for with this team. And Felix Rosenqvist so far seems to be that perfect driver to not only for himself, but also bring along a rookie in Tom Blomqvist.
With Blomqvist, you feel like he's safe for another year? I mean, he should be.
Yeah, I think so. For a rookie, it's kind of like, as long as he doesn't go out and embarrass himself.
Yeah, and he hasn't.
No, yeah, and cost the team a lot of money in repairs and stuff like that. I think he's fine. I think it's unfair to really judge any driver on one season, but money talks, and if you're losing the team a lot of money in terms of crash damage and stuff, that can go a long way. But I think Tom Blomqvist it's a year where he's trying to find himself for sure. He has one top 15, and that was to start the year. I mean, he's struggled, but he's a rookie. Like, what do you expect? And I think that's kind of where we're at with Blomqvist.
A rookie who didn't race in the ladder either. That makes it a lot tougher.
Yeah, did a lot of F3 and Formula E and stuff like that, and of course was in sports cars. So did some sports car work as well. So yeah, I think it's a get acclimated type year for Tom Blomqvist, and next year is where that year where you go in and really maybe raise the expectations for him.
All right, what's your number 3?
Well, I'm going to stick with your theme in terms of what we were talking about with Tom Blomqvist. Let's talk about Kiffin Simpson a little bit, because this is a guy that I was completely unfair to when he was first announced. Granted, he's a guy that's in his seat because of money. And we've seen... But
so are a lot of guys.
Right. But we've seen just the impact of what the Journey money has brought. Now, Chip Ganassi Racing announcing this week a Journey Racing Academy or something like that. So they're obviously fronting the money for that. But we thought, at least I thought, Kiffin Simpson's only in this series because of money. And yeah, that still could be the case, but he's not embarrassing himself out there.
I would say he's shown quite well. I mean, he's outperforming Tom Blomqvist, right?
Yeah, I mean, granted,
there's difference in knowing the tracks better.
Yes, and of course, more experience in the latter, of course, with Indy next. I mean, what was it, 2 years that Kiffin Simpson, maybe in 2.5 years that Kiffin Simpson did, or 2 years, 22 and 23 in Indy Lights. But this is a guy that has not he's not embarrassed himself out there. And that was my worry with Kiffin Simpson. If there was anybody that you could point to out within the top 4 teams and say, how does this guy have his ride? It's Kiffin Simpson. And it's about money. But he's went out there and proven that he can be a respectable driver out there and not go out there and cost Ganassi money and just put it in the wall time after time. He's brought it home all 4 times. He does not have a DNF this year yet, knock on wood. Finishes of 12th, 14th, 15th, and 19th. I mean, for a rookie coming into the series, and granted, you're a bit of ahead than everybody else because A, your experience in Indy Lights, B, you're at Ganassi. That helps a tremendous amount. But I've been impressed with what Kiffin Simpson has done, maybe because my expectations were 0, but he's outperformed those expectations clearly.
Well, let's just put it this way. He had the fastest race lap at St. Pete.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding. Like that's in his first IndyCar start. He finished 12th, had the fastest race lap. That's an exceptional start for a rookie on a street course in your first event. 19th, 14th, 15th. Middle of the pack, but middle of the pack as a rookie in this series is highly competitive. If you're finishing in that 15 to 19 range as a rookie, well done, because those are impressive results that you don't expect from any rookie to be able to pull off, no matter how much hype they have coming in to the series because it's just that competitive. And now that it's switched from being, it's a lot different when you're talking 17, 18, 19 cars versus 27.
Right.
And it's a lot more impressive. So I also been impressed of what he's been able to do and his consistency. Will that carry on over to the oval? No idea. That remains to be seen because you just have no idea who's going to be the odd man or woman out for the Indy 500 with 34 entries, 33 spots. But yes, he has done a great job and has also done good work and just trying to get more seat time in sports cars, adding, Daytona, won at Sebring last year. So he's putting in the work and it's impressive what he's done so far. There is, however, a long way to go.
There is, but I think what we looked at this year and said, well, there's no way that Ganassi races 5 cars next year because one of these guys is going to flame out. And we looked at Kiffin Simpson as probably the likely candidate. Barring maybe a retirement from a Scott Dixon, I know it's early, but I'm looking at it like who is, through the first 4 or 5 races, raced themselves out of a seat at Ganassi. And my thought would be Kiffin Simpson, but he hasn't. So if this team came back and raced 5 again next year, even with the charter system that we kind of like, wow, are they going to have to race to get in with Prima? Wouldn't be surprised at this point if the results that we've seen thus far from that entire team carry through the entire season and this team comes back next year with 5 full-timers as well. So that's a credit to Kevin Simpson for a guy that I thought would quickly show why he doesn't belong in the IndyCar series. Has not done that. In fact, he's not been seen for all the right reasons on track. And to be the fastest race lap and not put it in the wall or anything at St. Pete is very impressive. That's the drive that is most impressive to me because there's no runoff and it's starting the season. Everybody's overeager. You want to prove something, and he came out, did not put a wheel wrong, finished 12th, and he's kind of carried that momentum through the rest of the season. Yeah, that's his best finish so far. But he hasn't had a disastrous weekend yet. And I thought with his inability or inexperience in the car and his lack of proven winning pedigree in the ladder, finishing 9th and 10th in points in his 2 years in Indy Lights, I thought this isn't going to work. But through the first 4 points paying races, he's done all the right things in terms of not being the center of attention for the wrong reasons.
And you know how there are people say, oh, they're better suited to Indy cars than the Indy Lights car. It's like, I never really buy that. I think that's silly, but so far, he's done a good job. It helps being on a top team, but he was on a good team in Lights, so it's not like he wasn't with a competitive ride in any of those situations. But it just goes to say that some people do adjust better to a bigger car with more power, and perhaps his sports car experience has helped quite a bit in that adjustment.
Well, any wheel time is good wheel time, and he went to arguably the best team to go to for a rookie when you look at it in Chip Ganassi Racing. That's for sure. Definitely helps.
A couple other final notes on the Sonsio Grand Prix, a track record 13 lead changes in the event, which as much as it felt like it was dominated, I mean, you at least have that stat to fall back on. I thought that was interesting. And then the other thing, our favorite, TV ratings.
Well, first I want to ask you.
Oh, wait, there's one other note because I forgot about this. Shout out to Jamie Chadwick. Yeah. First podium by a female driver since Pippa Man in 2010 at Kentucky. First on a road or street course since Anna Beatrice at Sonoma in 2008. That for Indy Lights / Indy Next. That courtesy of Steve Wittich.
Very impressive drive by Jamie Chadwick. She was actually in position to get a top 5, top 6 at Barber, and then got caught up in something late and finished in the back of the field. So Jamie Chadwick, we talk about needing some acclimatization time in the next rung of the ladder. We talk about IndyCar coming from Indy Lights, but for Jamie Chadwick from Formula E into, or what was it, W Series, to Indy Lights, and it was a big adjustment for her last year, and she had to get stronger, and she has, and we've seen that. I don't think she's competing for a championship this year. I think that looks like it's going to be Nolan Siegel and Jacob Abel is probably the 2 guys competing for that Indy Next championship. But next year, year 3, I mean, JB Chadwick could really be a big deal, and she continues to get some podiums this year. She's going to start opening some eyes in IndyCar because opportunities tend to open up for women drivers if they can be very impressive. And she had her most impressive performance to date last Saturday.
Obviously, a lot of pressure on her this season to really make the jump, and getting a podium is a good first step, but there's obviously still a lot further to go. So TV ratings, we'll get to that in a second. Sonsio extending its partnership with IMS, also is the title sponsor of the Sonsio Grand Prix, so good news there. And we saw Callum Ilott confirmed for McLaren for the Indy 500. That wasn't a surprise, but he drove the Team Jota Porsche 963 Hertz machine to win at Spa in WEC. Again, Tom Brady called him because Tom Brady is a co-owner, a partner on that team. And then Teo Pourchaire will run the rest of the season, sans the Indy 500 for McLaren in the number 6 car. Obviously, Callum Ilott in that machine. No surprises on any of those announcements. And now we get to the fun part, the TV rating, which I don't know. We
it was up.
Freak out about all these things, and it just kind of is what it is.
Well, it wasn't embarrassingly low compared to the last couple races.
875,000 for NBC. That was TV-only viewership. But it's the second best audience of the year and way up from last year, which is 715,000.
Yeah, which is at least trending in the right direction now between race to race, because I think that's the first race this season that's been up.
I believe
comparatively to a year ago. I always say if you can't get 1 million on network, it's a big problem. But comparatively to what IndyCar has had the last couple races, it was good to see that they were up from a year ago, and maybe they can keep that momentum going for the rest of the month in a qualifying weekend in the 500. And you had boots on the ground, too, on Saturday. So
the crowd looked way up to me.
I thought it was the biggest crowd in Turn 1 in the grandstands that we've seen since maybe the inaugural road course race. I don't know what you thought, but it seemed...
basically, reports were the crowd was up. They didn't release anything publicly, but we showed up well over an hour early to the inside Turn 1 viewing mound where we're always at for that race.
Do you guys park... You can't park inside the...
No, but we park close
right?
by just because my brother lives like right across from there. So it's a short walk, maybe 5-10 minutes. You go under the tunnel and you're good. But it's an event where I think the weather, it was nice. It was looking like it could rain earlier in the week. That was not the case. What's interesting is when it was sunny, it felt really hot out and humid. But then the sun would go behind clouds and it felt really cold and breezy. So it was back and forth all day. But yes, the crowd certainly looked up to me, and I can't speak to estimating things, but I tend to agree with you. This was perhaps the second biggest crowd they've had for this event, outside, of course, the very first one. And
it felt like that was the most people I've seen in the Turn 1 mound.
Yes, it was very full where we were at. We showed up again earlier than normal, and already felt like it was as full or fuller than when the race would start.
Nice. Now, good to see. Good to start to the month, and attendance-wise, and they had a nice day, which is not what we've been able to say this week for the majority of practice.
No.
But, no, it was a good event. I've come to, maybe early in the road course experiment, not really been the biggest fan, but I've gotten used to the road course. I think it's a good way to kick off the month. I think it's a good way to get everybody settled and with the teams and all that and kick it off. I wish there was more practice time for the 500, all that, but I think it's a good kickoff event. And it's not the best race. It's not the worst race, but when people show up and people watch, which more people watched than a year ago, it's tough to complain.
Absolutely. If you agree or disagree with us, we'd love for you to interact with us. You can find us at newtrackrecordpodcast.com. While you're there, check out the store. We have t-shirts and stickers for sale. Also, you can sign up for the email list. It is free. You won't miss new episodes or any special announcements that we have. Also, you can support us on social media. Follow us on Twitter/X and Instagram. IndyCar Podcast is the handle for each of those platforms. On Facebook, search for New Track Record. Our email address, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com. And you can also support us via Patreon, patreon.com/newtrackrecord, starting at just $1 per month. Thanks to Xavier, Rob, others for their support over the years. And again, you can join them again starting at just $1 per month to support us on Patreon. And as always, download and listen for free on your favorite podcasting platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Overcast, Castbox, Player FM, wherever you get YouTube Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Again, download and listen in for free. Mailbag time, and we'll start with Rate the Race. How would you rate the Sonsio GP?
I had it a 6.5.
Yeah, that's where I have it. I'm going to say 6 since you said 6.5.
Oh, really? So I'm higher.
Yes.
That never happens. But
the first half of the race I thought was very entertaining. The second half was whatever. So I'm taking the average again. When we get like too many entries, which is a good problem on Rate the Race,
yes.
It's just easier to average them out than read off every single one.
For sure.
So the Rate the Race average was a 5.7. There were a lot of people who gave it a 2.
Man.
A lot of 7s, a lot of 2s.
They say I am harsh. 2?
Yeah.
Man. Now,
I mean, Cars on Track to me is automatically a 5.
Yeah, I think it's tough to get less than a 5 for me. So it really has to be processional or just...
And you had on-track passes for the lead, so I add a point, but the second half of the race was just a complete non-factor.
I mean, unless the road's coming up, the surface, it's got to be at least a 5, right?
Yeah, unless you have a Detroit situation from what was that, like 2012 or whatever?
Yeah.
You're getting at least a 5.
Yeah,
so,
or a serious accident, something like that. But your baseline's kind of like a 5, right? But
yes.
Yeah, 6.5. The start was phenomenal, the first couple laps. The restart could have used a couple more cautions to have a couple more restarts, particularly late. But overall, 6.5.
All right, let's get into people's questions, comments, everything else. Jeremy from HBG on the Roger Penske interview. I think one side of that interview was much happier than the other side. Penske came across as very defensive in all of that.
Yeah.
That Racer.com Marshall Pruitt interview. Very well done, if you haven't checked it out.
Yeah, very, very good. And credit to Penske Corp, Team Penske, for putting Roger Penske out. From what I understand, they reached out to Marshall about having an interview. It's always tough with context with a phone interview and then translating it into text and all that stuff. But I thought that the line of questioning was fair. I saw Roger's side more than I expected in terms of, okay, that makes sense. Overall, we're going to agree to disagree that the punishment did not fit the crime, or at least the examination where it should have been a series thing, not a team thing, all that stuff. I do feel for Roger in the sense that so many people continue to be like, well, how could Roger not know? But this is not the Roger Penske of 10, 20, even 5.
He's
5
not
years
involved.
ago.
Like, I don't know how many times I have to say this. I
not involved
firmly
in the day-to-day.
believe he is not involved in day-to-day operations of Team Penske in where are they based? Mooresville, North Carolina.
Correct.
Or Concord, or all
now,
the Cup teams are in
you
that
could
area.
say he should be harsher on his employees for cheating, and that's not just in IndyCar, but also NASCAR for sure. That's fair. But to say that, well, Roger, how could Roger not know? The dude's what, 88 years old? I mean, and is trying to do everything he possibly. We don't agree with everything Roger Penske does, but we're not going to say.
Remember, he wasn't even at Long Beach, right?
Yeah,
he was flying back.
The dude puts work in. For an 88-year-old still doing what he does is astounding to me. And yes, there's plenty of things we don't agree with Roger Penske on what he's doing with the series, but I don't think anybody can question his motivation or his effort to do what he thinks is the best thing for the series. I have a hard time buying into anybody that continues to want to lay blame for Roger Penske in thinking there's a direct line to Roger and cheating. I'm not doing that. There's too much to lose for Roger Penske. And he even said, like, why would I do that? It compromises not just everything that Team Penske stand for, but everything the IndyCar series stands for. He also has to do some damage control because we're starting to hear murmurings that Honda isn't too happy about what happened. We had some texters talk about that in recent weeks, and we kind of looked at it as like, I don't know if that's going to be a big impact, but it sounds like it could. But overall, I don't think Roger Penske handled this the best, but I don't think he's as guilty as still some people like to think.
I would agree. And the fallout from that, just real quick, the penalties that are out there, it's you could say, well, they can work remote, but they're not available during track time, and say, well, they still have access. They're not technically fully suspended for the month of May. But look, these are harsh penalties.
Well, they're not there for the entire
Newgarden's
month.
engineer, Robbie Atkinson, senior data engineer, suspended from Team Penske for obviously the GP and then also the 500. Ron Rzucki, managing director, also suspended 2 races. Tim Cindric, president of Team Penske, also suspended. Again, will they be at the track? No, they will not. Will Power had people off his timing stand, and Jenna Fryer pointing this out.
We saw how it impacted Will Power's race
Joseph
on Saturday.
Newgarden, 2 people off his timing stand. Will Power, not accused of any wrongdoing, lost his strategist and a crew member in that. Clarification from Jake Query saying that the parties won't be in Indy for any activities, practice, quals, race. They'll have shop access, communication, will not be remotely included in war room track discussions, which people have joked. And, that video that Verizon did with Will Power testing on the IMS road course and Nick J. Fletcher saying this is all just an elaborate marketing exercise to showcase Verizon's 5G network speed. Penske does it again, posting the video, which, again, we talked about before this scandal. It's just funny how that has aged and all of this, but I don't think there's ill will. Mom2X over 2002 said, thoughts on Chevy hiring a law firm to investigate Team Penske scandal in IndyCar. It's just doing your due diligence.
Yeah.
They didn't find anything. So I guess I'm just not concerned, but
are you kind of like ready to just move on?
Yes, I am. I honestly am ready to move. I was ready to move on before the suspensions were announced.
Yeah, I just I felt like it is what it is. We're all not going to universally agree on how it was handled or what was done or all that stuff.
Let's move forward.
Let's move forward. I will say, though, I do think we saw the impact of not having some of those guys on site on Saturday.
Well,
with the
Newgarden was mid-pack. I mean, he had a fast race car in qualifying, but he fell back, and that was it.
Yeah.
There was no comeback for him in that race.
And you look at Will Power, and who his fill-in strategist was his engineer, right? John Buzlong?
Yeah.
Buzlong, who filled in, and he admitted he made the error of bringing in Will Power too soon at the second pit stop. So... And you can't really blame him. He's new to that position, so you're already seeing the fallout of some of those punishments. So, but I'm with you. I mean, going through Twitter and even the mailbag this week, I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm over it. I think, could it have been handled better? Sure, but I'm ready to move on.
And moving on in the mailbag to other topics, because that's what we have to do. You look at, so the series has new bell housing that'll be tougher that they're going to develop for the coming months.
Now the bell housing it's the top of the car, correct? Or is it under the end?
I thought it was underneath.
Okay.
On the skid blade.
See, that's how
I don't know. I don't understand any of that stuff.
All the technical stuff we don't understand.
No. And Poet Shevchenko saying, at what point does having to make all this new stuff, talking about the bell housing, work within the constraints of an old chassis mean that the teams in the series are spending more than on a clean sheet chassis? Well, Dale Coyne wants a new chassis. None of the other owners are going to go for that.
Which is wild. It's like the one
the
team
team
owner that
that's
maybe
tightest on finances, perhaps.
Wants a new car.
I think that says a lot, though.
Well, deep down, we know why they don't want a new car. Is the top teams. They perfected everything. Like if they're leading the series.
That's why I'm not worried about like weather and its impact for this weekend. Like maybe it could produce some interesting, but like how much more data do they need with this
how much
car?
can you pull out of this?
It's not like the hybrid is, so the hybrid's not a factor here yet. We'll get to that during news and notes, but it's just they have all the information needed. I don't know what else to say.
I don't think we're seeing any radical jump in speeds or whatever this week. It's just it's the same car, and like you mentioned, the teams can find incremental things. The OEMs can find incremental things. We're not seeing anything huge, but of course, Team Penske and Team Ganassi and Andretti and McLaren, they don't want new cars because they're at the pinnacle of the sport. They're the top teams in the sport.
Correct.
Why would they want to just start to zero? They don't want to do that.
Just think they used to do that every year.
Yeah, right. So, but that's the thing. Everybody's like, well, we'll just wait till the majority of team owners want it. I don't think you're ever going to get to that point because the top teams aren't going to want new cars unless they start having direct impact, whether it's sponsorship, whether it's lack of driver interest because it's an old car. But we're not seeing that. So until that happens, I don't think you're going to see a new car.
but they also have problems because they're getting too many entries, and that's because you have an old car, plain and simple.
There can be something as too much of a good thing. We're definitely seeing that with car counts.
So John Oriovitz, Indy Oreo, posted this saying he just saw a Doug Wolf's quote sums up the biggest problem for IndyCar as a year-long entity. 70% of our IMS Indy 500 fans don't watch another race the rest of the year, which, I mean, it's not like a shocking stat, but it is what it is. Daniel SEM 2004 saying, when all anyone talks about 90% of the time is the 500, you guys included, the other races are virtually meaningless. NASCAR doesn't talk about Daytona all year. F1 doesn't talk about Monaco all year. I would not say we talk about the 500 90% of the time. I think we try really hard to not
be that. Yeah. I mean, this time of year, of course, we're talking the 500.
Yeah, because it's the upcoming event, and it's the biggest event. Jeff Zerneski says, I agree with the sentiment expressed by Dub Bulls, but how many people that watch F1 in the U.S. go to any F1 races? TV viewership cannot be driven by diehard race fans only. Casual fans are going to watch because of compelling storylines and personalities. And I don't... Gilair 82307654. It was an IndyCar problem before 1979 and since the split. And yes, that is true. CART had that sweet spot where CART was as big. The 500 was the biggest event, but CART was as big during that era,
right? From
79 to 95. And quite honestly, CART was bigger than the 500 from like 96 to 2000, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Before teams started coming back over in mass, 2000, 2001, and so on. CART was bigger at that time. So, and we don't need to have a split discussion, but it is a good point.
No, I agree. I really equate the Indianapolis 500 and the problems inherent in the sport related to its biggest event with horse racing. Is the Indianapolis 500 and the Kentucky Derby are very, very similar in that there are a ton of people that go to both events that don't give any care or any thought to auto racing or horse racing the other 364 days of the year. And that's a credit to those events, but it's also a discredit to their respective sports as well. The only reason people care about the Preakness is because they want to see if the horse that won the Derby can win the second leg of the Triple Crown.
And then the third leg, they only care
if there's somebody. But it's all open at the Kentucky Derby. Is there's no Triple Crown on the line. You're just setting the tone for the Triple Crown. So many people go to the Derby and all that stuff to experience the Derby that don't give any care to horse racing the rest of the year. And I think you have a fair amount, and from what Doug Bulls says, over a majority of at least people that don't see any other race the rest of the year. And I have several family members every Memorial Day weekend get together, have a cookout, watch the Indianapolis 500. It's a tradition. Do they watch Barber and Mid-Ohio and Road America and Iowa and Milwaukee? No.
I mean, within my own family, myself and my brothers are big IndyCar fans.
Right.
But my parents will casually watch, and they'll like ask me, "Oh, what do you think of the?" But they wouldn't watch if we just went to the Indy 500. We just followed the Indy 500.
Right.
So, and that's the case for a lot of people, and that's fine. They just have to find a way to tap into those fans and say, "Hey, you can go to Detroit, or you can watch Detroit on TV." That's the next step.
The problem is being a fan and experiencing the biggest single-day sporting event in the world. Everything else after that is lame in comparison.
Yes.
It's
like it is.
It's okay, great. I go to the Indy 500. Yeah, let's give another race a watch, and you watch, and you're like, where is?
But I would argue though that there are advantages of those other. A, they're usually cheaper.
Yeah.
As far as tickets. B, it's less crowded, so it's easier in and out. C, it's a lot more lax with like some of the rules. Like Mid-Ohio is a great event to go to. Mm-hmm. The Indy GP is the perfect event to go to like take young kids who are kind of into it, but you're not sure they could last a full day in the Indy 500. I haven't been to Road America. Everyone says great things about that. Haven't been to Long Beach. Obviously, that's one I'd love to get to. So on and so forth. Barber's a great event. No idea what's going to happen with Nashville on the Oval, but it was a fun street course event. There are a lot of other good tracks. Milwaukee, been there. It's great they're going back. So there are other options. They're not the event outside of, I guess Long Beach would be the exception.
Yeah.
They're not the event that the Indy 500 is.
And that's the thing, is a lot of people are into it for the event. The racing is just part of the event. Similar to the Kentucky Derby. The race is only part
people
of the
go
event.
to see and be seen, right?
Yes.
And it's just like, oh, you want to be part of the party or the event or whatever. That's fine.
The spectacle, that's great. I just don't necessarily know if it's a problem, quote unquote, that 70% of the people don't watch any other races. I just think that's a byproduct of how big the event is. And
when you get
an event for 108 years,
when you get 4, 5, 6 million viewers for the Indy 500, and you struggle to get a million for all the other races, that plays out. That 70% number makes sense.
I don't know if it's a quote unquote problem as much as it is just a symptom of how big the Indianapolis 500 is.
It's a growth opportunity. All right, let's move on. Best all-around driver in IndyCar right now. You posted this poll. 65% said Palou, 8% Newgarden, 21% Dixon, 6% other. Couple of replies. T Wood Racing said when Alex wins on an oval, so when he can be classified here, takes these guys a while to get their confidence on ovals. Will Power should be on the list. Last 3 seasons been very consistent. Indy_Amy said Palou, Dixon for road and street, Newgarden for ovals. I think Will Power is going to be a real factor for this championship. Dude can do it all and can be consistent. Bauer Racing said Palou is great, never won on an oval. A lot of people pointing that out. Marty Williams 63. Alex Palou is best single-seater racer on the planet at the moment. That's pretty high praise.
Ooh.
Fit J 1983. Newgarden
Max
best
Verstappen
all around.
Something to say about that. I think.
Yeah. It adds road, street, short ovals, super speedways, won GTP at Daytona, and even a sprint in SRX. Yeah, Newgarden could lay claim to that, but Newgarden's not even been consistent, and that's been his issue.
Right.
For this season. Take away the penalty. I mean, he's someone else. Vin Designs 2013. Palou isn't strong on the ovals. I wouldn't say he's not strong. He's finished second in the Indy 500 a couple of years ago and was top 10 last year.
Maybe he's not consistent.
Yeah, he just hasn't won. Adds Newgarden's good at everything. I think Chevy really struggles on road, street, matching Honda, perhaps. And I think that's kind of one of the biggest thing. We talked about this earlier. Palou wins on an oval, which is inevitable. Probably will happen this year, and then we can really crown him as the top guy.
I would agree, but good feedback from everybody. Just when you factor in that phrase, that all around, man, it's tough for me to put Palou number 1.
Hybrids debuting at Mid-Ohio. Marty Williams also chipping in. As much as I think it's a great idea, if there's the potential to get more cars into the series, surely it's not correct to change mid-season. I think there's more pressure from Chevy and Honda to get this done.
Yes, I definitely think so. I think you and we don't agree with doing it mid-season.
But I don't think they have a choice.
No, I think you've put it off long enough. You've had enough issues. The OEMs want this, and you need to make the OEMs happy, particularly Honda.
Yes, I think that's kind of where they're at. So that's official. Again, that's not a surprising timeline. That's what we expected to happen, what we expected this to be. And then a lot of thoughts on the mailbag, Marshall Pruitt, Racer.com. Negotiations with Fox have been halted with IndyCar. What does that mean? A lot of replies. Lynn_IndyCar. It's funny that the question is based on the Long Beach race. Do IndyCar fans understand how TV sports contracts work? Number 1, NBC has a huge contract to cover golf. Number 2, NBC Sports owns the Golf Channel. Number 3, IndyCar does not pick the date of Long Beach. Yeah, Long Beach always
talk about Long Beach
picks
on USA.
The date.
Yeah.
Tommy, the Treat 01. Hopefully both NBC has its flaws. Fox broadcast and NASCAR are horrendous. Imagine how they treat IndyCar. Kyle_Nadeau said they saw the ratings. Ouch. That's brutal. Magic Nick 1913 said basically assures NBC will re-up the rights to show IndyCar. Tyler Wong 65. Hopefully this means IndyCar coverage stays with IndyCar on NBC. A lot of thoughts on this. What's your takeaway?
Well, the question that we proposed on Twitter was, has conversations been halted because Fox is no longer interested, or was conversations halted because Fox was told that IndyCar is going to re-up with NBC? And I think how we understand that will then dictate the conversation. It's tough to say, well, was Fox no longer interested because we don't know? Are they no longer interested, or did IndyCar tell them they're going with NBC, and now that's why they're not talking? So it's a disappointment, I think, for both of us. I know there's some people that are very, very partial to NBC. I think at one point early on in the relationship, IndyCar was very important to NBC. It no longer is. You could say some of that maybe is IndyCar's blame because of ratings. You can say, well, NBC can promote better. Yes, but is it fair to say probably NBC expected more higher ratings for IndyCar when it first got the deal? I would say yes. You and I, particularly me, complain at every avenue about the lack of investment by NBC in the series, but you could push back and say, well, the series isn't getting high ratings, so why would NBC invest money? It's kind of the chicken or the egg thing. But I think new blood would be appreciated, I think, by you and I, and at least for right now, it doesn't sound like that is going to be an option heading into 2025.
And a couple emails as well, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com, an email talking about Fox potential coverage. This from VJ regarding discussion of Fox Sports potentially obtaining IndyCar coverage and an advantage of not having the Olympic break that NBC has. Well, this is true. Fox does have World Cup rights. That's a good point. With the tournament being hosted stateside in 2026, I'm not sure Fox or FS1 will carry races during the tournament. Wanted to put that out there. That being said, are you aware of any plans for 2026 season? Not sure if IndyCar could hold races while the tournament is happening, especially at venues such as Toronto, which is right next to a World Cup stadium. Well, if they stay with NBC, it's irrelevant. But it's a good question and a good point.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's not the World Cup is once every 4 years, similar to the Olympics, but it's a big deal because it's in the United States in 2026. So that's kind of the caveat there.
And then one other question from Eric. This, again, from just over a week ago. Car counts and charters. With everyone worried about having too many cars for some tracks next year, why don't they just set a car limit for each track based in track pit size and let qualifying decide who gets bumped and can't race? I mean, in the end, isn't it the definition to qualify to become eligible for competition?
Well, I think that's coming next year.
I also know it sounds inevitable that charters are going to happen, but I don't believe in them because they will hinder new competitors due to barrier to entry and decrease race excitement. I think that qualifying should not just be about position, but also if you make the race or not. Some like Penske might be worried about their sponsors. They aren't guaranteed to be able to race. But think about how much airtime Graham Rahal's car got when he got bumped last year. I can see them being worried about championships in that aspect too, but we'll just put pressure on the teams to run a top-level team and make sure they don't make mistakes, have issues with the cars for qualification.
Pushing back on it a little bit, he mentioned qualification, and yes, the driver should have to qualify for races to make it. Well, what's the difference between qualifying for races and qualifying to race in the series, which is what charters are? And we saw the story this week come out with Pratt Miller basically sidelining its IndyCar effort because of the charter system. And that's the charter system working, isn't it? If Pratt Miller wants to get into IndyCar, it can approach another team and try to buy its way in, buy its charters. The series doesn't need any more cars. It doesn't. And do I want to see Pratt Miller in the series? Yes. But is it a good thing that they can't get in because there's so many cars? I think so. So
competition breeds more competition.
Breeds competition. So if you want competition to make a race, why don't you want competition to be in the series? Is my thing. You can't have 30 cars at every racetrack. You can't. And it's pointless because immediately you slice 10 of those as they're not competitive. They have no chance to win the race. Zero. None. Right now we look at it with 27. You're lucky at most events to look at 20 cars that could win a race. Probably less. You don't need extra cars. You don't need cars. I mean, F1's popularity continues to grow. It has 20 cars. That's it. Cup popularity is big right now, whether it's going up or down, depends, but has 36 cars at most events. Used to have 43 at every event. You're not losing anything by cutting those last 6-7 cars, and you wouldn't lose anything by cutting 6 or 7 cars out of the field right now. I think 22, 23 in both of our minds, I think, would be the prime number for cars in the field outside of the 500.
Time for news and notes, and we do have some news. Linus Lundqvist, driver of the number 8 American Legion Chip Ganassi Racing Honda, crashed in turn 2 during practice just minutes ago as we're recording this on Thursday morning, again during the morning session that they added. So pretty big hit for him. This is not good timing, obviously.
Never
Who knows
good timing.
what track time will look like tomorrow with weather, and then Saturday with the boost turned up. But haven't seen a video replay of this yet. In fact, I just had one sent to me. But when we talk about people who can miss the race, that's not helpful.
No, I mean, he's with the right team, though, to get it figured out. I think I'd be a little bit more worried if you are one of the lower tier teams putting it into the wall. But I think Lundqvist will be fine. But
Yeah.
this is the thing is when you have so few opportunities to be on track this week because of weather and scheduling, is you have to maximize your time. And now he's not going to be out the rest of the day. So he's going to go into Fast Friday, of which weather is sketchy. And I think my best case scenario is just wipe out tomorrow. And I think that would make the weekend extremely, extremely crazy, particularly Saturday. Because if you don't have any practice tomorrow for Fast Friday, and then you have the hour practice from 8:30 to 9:30 on Saturday morning, that's all you get before qualifying starts at 11. There's going to be a lot of drivers chasing it and trying to figure out what the boost has given them. So Linus Lundqvist, it's better today than tomorrow, but never a good time to put in the wall.
All right, so we move on with news and notes and the Borg Warner Trophy jackpot. If there's a back-to-back winner now, up to $440,000 this year. Again, this hasn't been done since Elio in 2001 and 2002, asterisk.
Paul Tracy added that asterisk.
I think it adds, what is it, like $20,000 every year? So
yeah.
It's a big jackpot if Newgarden goes back-to-back. Also, Edward_Holleran, who I don't know if he's like an attorney with drivers or what, but obviously has some connection to a lot of drivers and teams, presented Luca Giotto the hand from Georgina that he hit.
I did see that.
Which that's incredible.
This is the gift that keeps on giving that.
Also, so we talked about movement with Team Penske. So John Buzlog, I think it's Buzlog, who called strategy for Newgarden in the GP. He'll be with Power for the 500. David Faustino will be on engineering. So David Faustino, who's double dipping for Power. Jonathan Dogood will call strategy for Newgarden. That's really not actually a big change. Yes, it's different, but I mean, he's experienced, so that'll be good for them. Robert Wickens consulting with Andretti Indy. He's on Marco's pit stand. So again, that's the Brian Herta connection. Obviously, he drives for Brian Herta Autosport. Jimmy Johnson will be doing the double. He'll be calling the Indy 500 for NBC. He'll be on the broadcast crew for that, and also select NASCAR Cup Series events.
And he's racing
NBC.
in the Coke 600, right?
Yes. So
man, he's gonna have a long day.
That's pretty cool. Pato Award has back the St. Pete First Place Trophy.
Oh,
Nathan Brown saying a member of Penske Entertainment just dropped it off at McLaren's, Taj Mahal at the track. Their hospitality area.
Man, who drew the short straw to have to take that over there?
Yeah, I don't know, but Pato was able to get it. Scott Dixon, who led the opening practice. Last time he led opening Indy 500 practice 20 years ago. In 2004, 219.760 miles per hour. That from Trackside Online. A couple other notes. IndyCar has made some aerodynamic changes. Article on Racer.com talking about the gurney flap. You can read into the technical details there if you want.
Your thing.
Juncos Hollinger. A lot of people concerned. They unveiled the new liveries, but there's no new sponsors. Well, they've added David O'Neill, former team manager and sporting director for Haas F1 in Formula One. When they started, been a lot of motorsport experience, so that's a good sign of team investment there. Jordan Sparks will sing the national anthem for the Indy 500. I believe she did it in 2015 as well.
Yeah, I saw right before we started.
Great voice.
Yeah, right before we started recording, Philip Phillips will do God Bless America. So
American Idol tie-in.
Yes.
for both.
We're seeing a theme here.
which
sure.
is interesting because American Idol's on, Fox now?
Yeah.
It used to be on ABC. I don't
Correct.
think you can read anything into
No,
it.
I don't think so. I don't think so either.
I don't think that means anything.
No, that's not.
Ticket sales, reserve seats less than 10,000 remaining. That was as of a couple days ago. So realistic shot, they sell out of reserve seats. Obviously, I don't think they'll sell out of, GA.
Yeah.
I mean, they did,
Which
for
is what they would have to
2016.
do for the
We
blackout
think.
to be lifted, right?
We think. So I don't know. That's one of those confusing things that who knows what happens.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound like, with the race less than 10 days away or 10 days away, I don't see that. It hasn't been thrown around as a possibility, so I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. And then the pace car for the Indy 500, the 2024 Chevy Corvette E-Ray is the pace car 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds. 35th time a Chevy served as the 500 pace car since 48, 21st time a Corvette since 78. This is an interesting car because it has two separate, essentially, engines.
Really?
Naturally aspirated V8, and then electrified responsiveness, 6.2-liter V8. Electric motor delivers an additional 160 horsepower, combines for 655 total horsepower.
So hybrid-ish technology?
It can run wholly on electric power for up to 4 miles at speeds up to 45 miles per hour. That's the stealth mode.
Ooh, that's what we need, stealth mode.
Yeah. So is that like a pace lap or whatever?
Yeah, maybe they'll do it, stay at
But
stealth.
either way, it's cool. It's got a lot of horsepower. I'm sure it'll be impressive to see on track.
Very cool.
And then a couple other quick things to get to. So Chad Smith, friend of the podcast. So the first car on track has never gone on to win the race. Now, you've had guys finish second. Alio in 2004 was second. That's a typo. Marco was second, obviously, in 2006. Alio in, let's see, he's got a typo there. But first car on track this year, so you can automatically rule someone out. Will
Okay.
Power.
All right, Will Power's not winning the race.
So you can rule him out. That's kind of the thing there. And then anything that we missed, obviously the Linus Lundqvist crash just came down.
Yes. If we look at current odds to win the Indianapolis 500, who would you say has the best odds? And this is going by DraftKings.
Pato Award.
He is second.
Joseph Newgarden.
He is fifth.
Okay, then it's Alex Palou.
It's Alex Palou.
Okay. It was Pato and it was Joseph at different times.
Yeah, so this is what astounds me, is Kyle Larson is third at plus 750.
That's just people not knowing
He's
anything.
higher than Dixon, Newgarden, Power. That's crazy to me. If there was a driver that I look at in value outside of Elio at plus 4,000 is just absurd. Go get that right now. I'm staying with that same team. Felix Rosenqvist at plus 2,000.
Yeah.
So those are the...
Felix Rosenqvist had arguably the best car last year.
Yeah.
In terms of just raw speed and ability to do what he wanted. I was actually rewatching last year's race earlier this week, and I forgot that when he crashed, that was with less than 20 laps to go.
Yeah.
And then Pato was just a few laps after that. They had 3 rocket ships.
Right.
Rossi obviously finished in the top 5, but yeah, Felix would be a good one as well.
Yes, absolutely. So there's value out there, and it's not with Kyle Larson. That's just absurd that he's higher than he should be at the highest 10th on that list. I'm sorry. But right now, as of this morning on DraftKings, you can get Alex Palou at plus 400. The value picks, I'm looking at, like I mentioned, Rosenqvist and Elio. I mean, right now, if you bet Elio at plus 4,000, put $5 on him, you can win over $200 if he wins.
That's crazy.
It's just for a 4-time winner in a competitive car. That's just silly.
Yeah. One other note I want to get to before we get to tweets of the week and our random split air driver of the week. Marshall Pruitt had a change on the health front. He posted last weekend, so he wasn't at Indy on Sunday. They're meeting, and again, best wishes to him on treatment with his wife. He said there was a good first day with a new chemo regimen. So again, continue to send best wishes to him as his wife Shabral battles cancer. So obviously not a good situation there, but hopefully things are able to progress in a positive way, and he can make it to Indianapolis. Definitely. All right, tweets of the week time. We have two. First one actually from Marshall Pruitt. Waiting impatiently for the Kendrick, Ferrucci, and Drake Grosjean diss tracks to drop. Thought that was good. And then Nathan Brown of the Indy Star. Big restart here, going to take 10% luck, 20% skill, 50% concentrated power of will. Obviously, power and will capitalized. Thought that was clever. So those are the tweets of the week, and now it is time for our random split air driver of the week.
Well, we had to go deep into the kart archives and also go with somebody that shares a birthday with me. 1 year off, but shares a birthday with me. Dan Clark.
Speedy Dan Clark.
Kart was born October 4th, 1983. I was born October 4th, 1982. He competed in the Champ Car seasons of 2006 and 2007. What's interesting is 3 years after he was done with Team Minardi in Champ Car, he raced for Walker Racing and Indy Lights in 2010, which I did not know. But in the 2 years with it was CTE HVM Racing,
which I was actually the other day in my head trying to think of, okay, what were the teams that came over from Champ Car to IndyCar post split?
Yeah.
And HVM was the one I forgot about.
That was the one you forgot. So competed with them in 2006, Team Minardi Team USA 2007. He had a best finish of second at Road America in 2007. Also reached the podium at Denver, a third place finish in 2006. He also did some World Cup of Motorsport, which I didn't know what that was.
Never heard of that.
Me neither. Did one NASCAR race in 2011 and then Nationwide Series at Watkins Glen. He was one of the road course specialists back in the day. The Boris said
that used to be a thing.
That very much when it was just Watkins Glen and Sonoma that they did the 2 races per year that were non-ovals. But those 2 years were it. When you look at his Champ Car career, he narrowly missed out on another podium finish at Montreal, which was one race after the Denver race. He won pole at Road America, first rookie to do so since 2003, first British rookie since Nigel Mansell in 1993. But he had to settle for rookie runner-up that year. Who was the rookie of the year that season?
In 2007?
In 2006.
Oh, 2006? Ooh. Was it... what's his name? He's Dutch. Was it Robert Doornbos?
It was Will Power.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Robert Doornbos, I think, would have been a year later.
Yes.
Graham Rahal was 2007 as well.
He did, and he was his teammate at Minardi Team USA in 2007 was Robert Doornbos.
Go figure.
Had a troubled season that year, said it finished 13th in overall standings, missed one race, having been ejected from the event for causing a multi-car crash in practice. Could you see that happening now in 2024?
No.
Somebody causes a multi-car crash in a race or at a practice, and he's dismissed from the event itself. I don't know if we can see that, but still with us, Dan Clark. He's a spry 40 years old and 1 year younger than me, from Mexborough, South Yorkshire, England. Mr. Dan Clark, this week's random split era driver of the week.
All right. So you have, before we go, we have a pole winner and speed predictions.
Okay. Pole speed predictions. Let me see. What was the pole speed last year?
That's a good question.
Let's go back. Let's see.
It was 234 something, right?
234 something is what we're going with.
234.217
by Palou. I'm going to go 234.4. And I will say the man on pole will be Scott Dixon.
I'll go 2:34.7, and I will go with, man, I don't want to pick Dixon because you picked Dixon.
Do you go Palou?
You know what? I'll go with Rinus VeeKay. He's always fast. He qualifies first 2 rows.
Okay. That'd be a big boost for Ed Carpenter Racing, for sure. So we'll see what happens. Is it the old standby Scott Dixon, or can Rinus VeeKay spin his way to a pole? Because, when they do driver introductions, even if he's on pole, he's got to do his 360.
Yeah,
right?
He's got to do the spin move.
So we'll see what happens this weekend. So hopefully we have a couple dry days this weekend, get qualifying in. If you had to pick right now on the other end of the 34 drivers,
who gets bumped?
Who's getting bumped?
That's tough. I'll go with Stingray Rob.
Not a bad pick, I don't think. We don't know. I mean, this is the thing. We haven't seen enough practice to really know who's slow. And really, Fast Friday is the first time during the week when I start looking at the bottom and, okay, who's off? And that's really when it becomes, and if we don't have a practice or much practice tomorrow, then it's going to be even bigger. But I will go for my bumped car this weekend. Man, that's tough. I am going to go with, I'm scanning the list here and seeing, you know what? I hate to do it because she had speed last year, but I'll go Catherine Lake.
All right. I think another name throw out there, Nolan Siegel, just because he's a rookie. I mean, someone's going to crash, and it's going to be bad timing, and we'll see how it plays out.
At least the first crash of the week is Linus Lundqvist.
Yes.
He doesn't get anything for that.
All right. For Justin Kinney, I'm Caleb Hatch. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week. This is New Track Record Podcast.
Podcasts by Federated Media.